بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. قال علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خير نسائها مريم بنت عمران وخير نسائها خديجة بنت خويلد. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كمل من الرجال كثير ولم يكمل من النساء إلا ثلاث: مريم بنت عمران وآسية امرأة فرعون وخديجة بنت خويلد. رواه ابن مردوي في التفسير وهذا إسناد صحيح. Brothers and sisters, this past Friday, if anybody doesn't know, for your information, it was International Women's Day. International Women's Day. And the interesting thing about these days, they have Mother's Day and Father's Day and Women's Day and Men's Day. Various different days. And the way that I look at it is that if you know the rights of your parents, if you know the right of your mother, you don't need Mother's Day. Because every day will be Mother's Day for you. If you know the right of your father, you don't need Father's Day. Because every day will be Father's Day for you. So one day I took my mother a gift. She's like, "What's this for?" Like, "What is this for?" I said, "Nothing, Mom. You're just my mom. I love you and I wanted to give you a gift." Oh, she became very happy. So there doesn't have to be a reason why you do something khair for someone. There doesn't have to be like, okay, oh, it's your birthday. Like, and sometimes it comes to me that we want to look for reasons to do khair and to do goodness. Because that has left our hearts doing something for the sake of Allah. When we do things for the sake of Allah, you don't need a reason. And this is the beauty of Islam. And the only way and the only path in the entire world that has this is Islam. Where you do something only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciates this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves this very much. That you should do something only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every other path and every other religion or every other culture, you need something. What did you do this? Oh, it's Christmas. Why did you do this? Oh, it's Easter. Why did you do this? Oh, there's this. Why did you do this? Mother's Day. Why did you do this? It's Father's Day. Why did you give me flowers? It's Valentine's Day. Every other day I can do zulm on you. Every day I can beat you down, but Valentine's Day, I'm going to love you very much. What is that? A husband can't take flowers to his wife on any other day except Valentine's Day? So these are methods, money-making methods. The reality of deen is that every single day should be that day where you recognize the huquq that others have upon you. Every day is a day that you recognize the huquq that others have upon you. The right that you should care for others and you should have consideration for others. So this day, Women's Day, it's something that, if a person, he fulfills the rights of women, then there's no need for Women's Day. And if a person doesn't know the rights of it, then one day is not sufficient for such a person. Having one day out of the year, this is not enough. If a person doesn't respect his mother, that one day out of the year is not going to make him a good person. If a person doesn't respect his father, that one day out of the year is not going to make him a pious person. Right? This is like Eid prayer, right? If a person doesn't pray Salat the entire year, he comes for Eid Salat, and he's very happy with himself. I'm a very religious person. I pray Salat al-Eid. Just because you do that, just because that is mentioned, or that is obligatory to do once a year, it doesn't make you absolved of your responsibility throughout the year 5 times a day. So similarly, we have to understand that these things that come, for those people that know, they don't need it. And for those people that need it, it's not sufficient. saying that, I wanted to mention because, for the sake of just mentioning, for the sake of it's an opportunity to speak about it, because it's people, it brings about discussion. Women's Day. So what is the role of Islam during Women's Day? What is Islam's role in that? And if I were to mention one statement, everybody should remember this statement, that Islam, from the advent, from its beginning, right? It was a revolution. It was a revolution to reinstate the rights of women in this world. From the advent, from the beginning, from the get-go, it was a revolution to change the condition of women, to give rights to all those people that did not have rights. And what is the proof of that? The proof of that is that when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with this deen, the reason why the disbelievers of Makkah, they did not want to accept the message of Islam, one of the reasons was that, what are you, Muhammad? What are you saying? Are you trying to equate man with woman? Are you trying to equate black with white? Master with the slave? Poor with the rich? What's wrong with you? What type of person are you? They would become angry at him because of the fact that he would say that they should be treated equally and they should be treated with same respect and they should not be discriminated and they should not be brought down. Right? Women were property. Women were buried alive. Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى. Allahu Akbar. Look at the word that Allah uses. What is the view of Islam regarding women and regarding females? That when the mushrikeen used to hear these words, they would cringe. They would be uncomfortable. Allah Ta'ala says, إِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى. When one of them is given a great news, bashara. What is bashara? Bashara is great news, good news. When one of them is given the good news of a daughter. Allah Ta'ala is saying that when you hear that Allah has given you a daughter, this is bashara. This is bushra. This is good news. This is congratulations. This is something to be proud about. This is something to feel honored. This is something to feel bestowed. That Allah Ta'ala has bestowed a bounty upon me. Allah gave me a daughter. So Allah Ta'ala says, إِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى. This is وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ وُلِدَ لَهُ إِمْرَأَةٌ أو وُلِدَ لَهُ وَلِيدَةٌ. Allah Ta'ala says, and when one of them is given the good news, right, that a girl has been given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then what happens? ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. Then his face becomes dark, out of sadness, and he's filled with grief. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ. He hides away from the people, from the evil of that which he has been given news about. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ عَلَى التُّرَابِ أَلَا سَاءَ مَا what? يَحْكُمُونَ. Then what does he say? Allah Ta'ala says, right? يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ. Should he keep this daughter? عَلَى هُونٍ. With this great disgrace that God has given him, a girl. Should he keep it with this disgrace? أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ عَلَى التُّرَابِ. Or should he bury her under the dust? And then Allah Ta'ala says, عَلَى سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Both the decisions that come to your mind, that should I hold this daughter and feel disgraced? Or should I bury this daughter and rid myself of this responsibility? Both of the things that can come to your mind is very bad. Both decisions are evil decisions. Both thoughts that come to your mind is a bad thought. Neither should you feel disgraced that Allah has given you a daughter. And neither should you bury her in the ground, because Allah Ta'ala will resurrect this child, and that child will say, right? وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. That child that was buried alive, she will ask, with what sin did you kill me? With what sin did you bury me alive? Similarly, would be the case of those that have abortions. In those days, there wasn't abortion. What they would do, if they didn't want a child, they would bury it alive when it was born. But in our day and age, we also have burying the children alive. And what is that? That is abortion. Never ever get involved in a situation like that. First and foremost, all the youth, never put yourself in a shameless situation. Always think about the consequences of what you're going to do. Always think about the consequences of the relationships that you have. That I'm about to do this, act with this person. This is going to be the result. This is going to be the consequence of this action. First of all, don't do that action that is going to make you, right, regretful. Don't do that action that is going to make you have this child. And then what are you going to do? You're going to have the decision of making abortion. First the zina was committed. First the fornication was done. Then after the fornication, another sin it led to. And what is that? The decision to kill somebody or not. That is killing. That is murder. And Allah Ta'ala says, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. And when that child, remember the day of judgment, Allah Ta'ala will resurrect these children. And they will ask Allah Ta'ala, and you will be brought forth. And that child will have a case against you. That, Ya Allah, this person killed me. What sin did I commit that I was killed? What wrong did I do? So this is something very important for us to understand. That this was the mentality that the people before Islam had regarding women. Right? أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ عَلَى سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Right? Then what comes? Does anybody? Hafaz? Yeah, so then it changes the subject. But here Allah Ta'ala mentions. And then in another verse Allah Ta'ala also mentions the value of women. يَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ إِنَاثًا وَيَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ الذُّكُورِ. Allah gives and bestows to who He wants daughters, and Allah bestows to who He wants males and sons. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, before the males, Allah mentioned the females. Before sons, Allah mentions the daughters. And in Tafsir al-Qurtubi, Imam Qurtubi rahmatullah mentions, Yahabu. Yahabu means to gift, to bestow. Yahabu liman yasha'u inathan. Wa yahabu liman yasha'u dhukur. Allah bestows the gift of females and daughters to who He wishes. And Allah bestows to who He wants sons. Wa yaj'alu man yasha'u aqima. And to some people He gives them nothing. He makes them aqim, meaning barren. They're not able to have daughter, they're not able to have son. But Allama Qurtubi rahmatullah alayhi, in Tafsir Qurtubi, he mentions that look at the beauty of the Qur'an. قَدَّمَ مَا كَانَ أَفْضَلِ. Allah Ta'ala mentioned and preceded the mention of daughters because the daughters are more virtuous. Daughters are more virtuous. And the virtues of daughter is known to those that have daughters. I have 2 sons. Alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me with 2 sons and I have 1 daughter. And my 2 sons are on one side, but my daughter, she has a different status. I love all my children. But the daughter has a different, there's something different about them. And Allah Ta'ala mentions, يَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ إِنَاثًا وَيَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ الذُّكُورِ. And the Prophet ﷺ, none of his male offspring they survived, but his daughter survived. And Allah Ta'ala gave 4 daughters to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ himself had 4 daughters. And the way he raised them, this is a sign that the Prophet, even before Islam, he had he had a path of righteousness. Before Islam, he was following the path of virtue. Before Islam, Allah Ta'ala had granted him intellect, that he was not following what the society was doing. Because the society, they were extremely hating women and females. And notice that the Prophet ﷺ was given all daughters, he kept all of the daughters. He didn't bury any of them. He did not follow the path of Jahiliyyah before Islam or after Islam. He did not follow their customs before Islam or after Islam. Allah gave him these 4 daughters, He kept them. And He raised them in the most beautiful manner. So, the deen came. Before Islam, there was no such thing as inheritance. Women would be inherited. In certain European cultures, when a man would die, the wife of that man who would pass away, she would be buried along with that man. She would be killed and she would be buried along with that man. People don't know about this. Or they would be burned. So they would take that woman and they would burn her also, and she would be expected to throw herself on top of when they're cremating that man who passed away, she would be expected to throw herself and burn herself alive on top of when the man was one's dying. Or if they were a little bit more civilized cultures, what would they do? They would be inherited. So whoever was inheriting the wealth of that man who passed away, he would inherit just like he's inheriting the zameen and the land and the property and the gold and the silver. They would inherit, oh, there's 2-3 wives that he has also. Okay, they also go in the property of that person. To the big brother or to whoever would be inheriting the property, they would inherit the wives of that individual also. And there was no limit. You can have as many wives as you want, as many women as you want. And all the women were considered your property. And in many occasions, those women would become inherited, those women would be put to death, those women would be buried alive, those women would be burned alive. Islam put an end to all of this. So from its advent, from the beginning, Islam had given huquq to women. And I wanted to take the opportunity that the perspective of Islam of women is the women of Islam itself is a proof of what rights Allah Ta'ala has given to women in Islam. The women that Islam produced. And people talk about Islam holding back the rights of women. And I will mention this just before I go into the whole discussion about these righteous women, is that any place that you see where women are disrespected or women are put down in any of the Muslim countries, these are the doings of the Muslims. It's not the doing of Islam. If any place in the world, Muslims women are disrespected, or Muslim women are not given their rights, or Muslim women are treated in a certain specific way, that is because of the culture of those people. That is not because of what Islam says. That's the doing of the cultural doings of those people. Otherwise, if you were to see, Ibn Asakir, who was one of the greatest muhaddithin, he was a very great muhaddith. 80 of his teachers were women muhaddithin. 80 of his teachers. Who? Ibn Asakir. Ibn Asakir, he wrote a book called Tarikh Dimashq. Tarikh Dimashq is a book that's like 50, 60 volumes. The history of Damascus. He's written a book, Ibn Asakir. It's over 50 volumes. This Ibn Asakir, who was such a great scholar, what type of scholar, what status do you have to be to write a book which is in 50 volumes? Can you write a book which is 1 volume? This person wrote a book. Any of the scholars in this day and age wrote a book that are 10 volumes even. 20 volumes. This person wrote a book which is more than 50 volumes. Ibn Asakir, very famous scholar in the history of Islam. 80 of his teachers were women. 80 of his teachers were women. They were muhaddithin, they were very great fuqaha. This was their status. Now, what type of society was that? That not only, right, the women were reading, they were the teachers of the great imams. Whereas in those days and ages, which was the dark ages in Europe, right, women didn't even know what books were. There was no such thing. Unless a woman would become a nun. That's a different issue. But these were 80 women. And these women also have families. They have husbands. They have children. And they're muhaddithin. They're learning. They're teaching. So there was a culture in Islam of learning and teaching. And it wasn't only, right, amongst, it wasn't only amongst men. It was amongst women also. And you can understand the status of women in Islam, where the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, خُذُوا شَطْرَ دِينِكُمْ عَنِ الْحُمَيْرَةِ. The Prophet ﷺ said, take half of your deen from Aisha radiallahu anha. How can Islam restrict women when the Prophet of Allah, before he's passing away, he's saying, I tell you that if you want to learn your deen, take half of your deen from Humayra. Humayra was the nickname of Aisha radiallahu anha. He's saying take half of your deen. He didn't say take half of your deen from Abu Bakr. Half the deen. Shatra dinikum. Shatra dinikum. Take half of your deen. Right? And shatr, at-tahuru shatr al-iman. In one hadith it mentions, at-tahuru shatr al-iman. Tahara is half of faith. So I think the Prophet ﷺ might be indicating to masail of fiqh. Specifically, masail of fiqh, masail of tahara. Because Aisha radiallahu anha lived with the Prophet. She knew the masail of ghusl, she knew the masail of wudu, she knew the masail of istinja, she knew the masail of hayd and nifas, she knew the masail and the issues of menstruation. So he said, خُذُوا شَطْرَ دِينِكُم مِنَ الْحُمَيْرَةِ. And it happened like that. Many tabi'een, many sahaba, many people, they used to go. Even Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he would be stuck in a specific fiqhi matter, he said, go ask Aisha radiallahu anha. She was one of the biggest muftis and judges in Islam. This is that deen, this is that Islam. That the Prophet ﷺ is leaving this world, and before he leaves this world, he's saying, get your knowledge from this woman. Right? And remember, another point to understand here is knowledge is the highest status in Islam. Islam, the person of the most highest status, who is it? They are the imams, and they are the ulama, and they are the fuqaha. Throughout the history of Islam, even the leaders, and even the hakims, and even the governors, and even the rulers, sometimes they would be bound by the judgments of the fuqaha. Because they know that people don't listen to us. The people listen to the ulama. So we have to have the ulama, right, be accepting, or we have to have the ulama and make them become inclined towards us. And that is why Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, many times he was told to become the chief justice, and he refused because he did not want to give any judgment out of injustice. Because something the governor or the king might tell him to say, and it is not according to justice, he did not want to feel compelled to give a fatwa, which is not in accordance with haqq. To give a fatwa for the sake of the king, and not give a fatwa for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he refused many times. From this we understand that the status of the fuqaha, they're greater than the status of even the umara. The status of the faqihs and the alims and the shaykhs and the people of knowledge, it was even higher than the status of the kings. Right? And it mentions that one time Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahmatullah alayhi, was going, and he sneezed. So when he was a majlis, he sneezed. And he said, Alhamdulillah, and there was like almost 10,000 people in his majlis. Everybody said, Yarhamukallah. 10,000 people said, Yarhamukallah, to the Alhamdulillah of Abdullah ibn Mubarak. So one of the advisors of the Malik, he was sitting there. He said, Hada wallahi huwa al-izzah. By Allah, this is izzah. Right? By Allah, this is izzah. That the king, he'll sneeze and nobody will even reply to the poor guy's sneeze. Nobody even know the guy sneezed. This is Abdullah ibn Mubarak. He sneezes in the majlis, he says Alhamdulillah, and there's 10,000 people in the majlis, they're saying Yarhamukallah to him. Another time he was passing, and then he bent down like this, and there was a big dust. They went inside in the air. So they thought, wait, what is this commotion? What happened? He went down on his, to his shoe, and big dust, cloud of dust came, and it could be seen from far away. What's this dust? He said, oh, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, his shoelace, it broke. So he went down, and everybody went down also to help him to fix his shoelace. And it caused such a commotion that it was like it caused a dust cloud to go in the sky, that just for the shoelace of this faqih, everybody's going down to help him with that shoelace, and it caused such a dust cloud that it can be seen from far away. This is the honor that Allah Ta'ala had given the people of knowledge. And Allah's Prophet is saying, get half of your knowledge from Aisha. Meaning, He's giving her such a status that is higher than the status of even the kings. These were the beginning stages of Islam that many of the pious and righteous women of Islam, they had. And from amongst them, I wanted to mention about Khadijah radiallahu anha. That these women, who they were and what their status was, right? How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a very special status in Islam. If you look at these women in Islam, just the women of Islam are an example of the status that Allah ta'ala has given to women in Islam. Just the women. If you just see what Islam produced, the women that Islam produced, that will tell you what are the rights of women in Islam. What is the status of women in Islam? Just by looking at the historical figures that were females. And from amongst them is, I wanted to mention Khadijah radiallahu anha. And the Prophet ﷺ said about her, خَيْرُ نِسَائِهَا مَرْيَمَ bint Imran. That the best of the women of the time was Maryam, the daughter of Imran. وَخَيْرُ نِسَائِهَا خَدِيجَةُ bint Khuwaylid. And the best of the women of Islam of the time was Khadijah radiallahu anha. And she was such a woman that it mentions in a hadith in Bukhari that أَتَى جِبْرَائِيلِ إِلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. That one time Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and said, Ya Rasulullah, هذه خديجة قد أتت ومعها إناء فيها طعام. One time Khadijah radiallahu anha was coming and she had cooked some food. She was coming with some food. And look at the status of this woman in the eyes of Allah and Rasul. She's coming with food inside her hand. فَإِذَا هِيَ أَتَتْكَ. And when she comes to you, O Messenger of Allah, فَقْرَأْ عَلَيْهَا السَّلَامَ مِنْ رَبِّهَا وَمِنِّي. Then give her salam from me and from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Khadijah radiallahu anha. And Jibreel alayhi salam is coming and saying that when Khadijah comes to you, then give her my salam. And give her the salam of Allah ta'ala. وَبَشِّرْهَا بِبَيْتٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ مِنْ قَصَبٍ لَا صَخَبَ فِيهِ وَلَا نَصَبٍ. And when she comes, give her glad tidings of a house in paradise made of a hollowed out pearl. This house for her will be made of a hollowed out pearl. And how will it be, this house? لَا صَخَبَ فِيهَا, right? فِيهِ وَلَا نَصَبٍ. This house will not have any commotion in there. And this house will not have any fatigue or tiredness or exhaustion in there. And what this means, the ulama mentioned, that Allah Ta'ala had given and stipulated a special house for Khadijah in paradise. And this house, it will have no commotion and no fatigue. No screaming and yelling. And no tiredness. And why it mentions this, these two specific things, La sakhaba fihi wa la nasab. Sakhab, it means to make noise, make commotion. And the ulama mentioned because Khadijah radiallahu anha, not a single day did she cause commotion in the house of the Prophet. Not a single day did she raise her voice at her husband. Not a single day did she create an argument and a fight. Sometimes, some houses that you go, all you hear is fighting. All you hear is commotion. All you hear is raising of voices. Brothers and sisters, this is not the way of Khadijah radiallahu anha. This is not the way of the pious women of Islam. This is not the way of the pious men of Islam. That every time you go in the house, it's like a screaming contest. Who can scream louder? Why is this screaming happening? Why is this yelling happening? So much marital issues, so much family problems. And if there's no family problems, this is the day and age that we live in. That the houses have become a living hell. Husband and wife is just a screaming contest every single day. And if the husband and wife don't have a problem, then the in-laws, they'll make sure that they have a problem. If the husband and wife, they have no problem, the in-laws will make it they make it sure that they put a little bit of spice in their life. They want to spice it up a little bit. They want to put a little bit mirch masala because it's too boring. Not having a fight every day enjoying lunch, having dinner together, living a happy life. That's not fun. Let's have a little bit of drama. Let's create a little bit of problem. Let's have a little bit of fighting. Let's have the husband fight with the wife and the wife fight with the husband. Why do they have to live happily? This is a shaitanic mentality. Brothers and sisters, those people that they get enjoyment out of causing a fight between husband and wife, this is shaitanic. This is very dangerous. We should seek refuge. And if a person has this mentality, make tawbah. Seek refuge in Allah from becoming like that. Because there's a lot of mother-in-laws and father-in-laws that they become like that. If you're a mother-in-law like that, seek refuge in Allah. Make istighfar. Say, I'm not going to have anything to do with the life of my daughter and my son-in-law. Or my son and my daughter-in-law. I don't want to have anything to do with their life. They're happy. Let them be happy. Isn't that what a mother or father should want? That's what parents should want. That your daughter or your son should be happy. They should be living happily. And if you want to see that they have problems, what's wrong with you? There's something wrong with you. There's a disease in your heart. Like Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned in the Quran, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا. In their heart there's a sickness. Why do you feel happy that there should be an argumentation? Why do you feel happy that there should be a fight? Seek refuge and make tawbah and make istighfar and seek forgiveness for this. That you're causing any type of dispute amongst the family. Don't allow this. Make life easy for people. Don't make life difficult for people. Look at Khadijah radiallahu anha. That she received a house made of a pearl in paradise, all because of the fact that she did not cause commotion in the house of her husband. She did not cause commotion in the house of her husband. There was a time that when the son was doing any type, he was getting angry on the daughter-in-law, what would the mother and father tell him? My son, that is like our daughter. Don't be mean to her. Don't yell at her. What's the matter with you? That's okay. Have patience. Women are like that sometimes, even though that's not their daughter. They're telling their son, they're advising their son that, oh my son, yes, that is somebody else's daughter, but treat her with kindness. Be patient with her. Don't lose your temper with her. Calm down. Calm yourself down. Have patience. That was one time. Right? Or, if a girl or a woman, she was complaining about her husband to her parents, said, oh my daughter, that's your husband. Maybe he's coming home tired from work. Maybe he's, not in a good mood. Look after him. Take care of him. Have patience. Husbands are like that sometimes. But now what happens? Now what's the situation? Show him who's the boss. Don't let him run all over you like that. Show him who wears the pants in that house. Allahu Akbar. This is the situation now where the in-laws, instead of becoming the means, right, of reconciliation, instead of becoming a means of creating love between a husband and wife, brothers and sisters, you're even allowed in Sharia to lie for the sake of getting a husband and wife back together. Sharia has allowed this. Sharia has not even considered this lying. That if a husband and wife, they're having a problem, and they hate each other, you should tell them, oh, your husband loves you very much, and actually he hates her very much. The guy, he hates her. He hates her guts. But you go and say, he said, what are you talking about? Right? She loves you so much. What are you talking about? No, there is no problem. She has so much respect and love for you, and she doesn't have any respect or love. But you're doing that just to reconcile. Sharia has allowed this to this extent, so that it can. Because brothers and sisters, there's nothing more dangerous than a dysfunctional home. Why has Sharia allowed this? Because there's nothing worse than a dysfunctional home. There's nothing worse than a husband and wife that are not meeting eye to eye. It causes problems at every level. The children suffer. The other family members suffer. The husband suffers. The wife suffers. It causes mental issues. It causes depression. It causes anxiety. It causes worry. A person, if his house is not running properly and he's in an argument with his wife, he'll go to work, he will not be functioning at work properly. He will go in society, he's not functioning in society properly. You see a person, he's trying to run somebody else over, on the freeway. Who knows? He's having problems at home. A person will not function at any stage in his life properly because he does not have a healthy home. The home is the core. The home is your markaz. The home is your center. In the Arabic language, what is that? What do they call the house? Maskan. Yani makan al-sukun. The place of sukun. If the house is not maskan, you know what is maskan? Maskan means the place of sukun, the place of sakina. That when you go home, right? It's not called the place of where it's a battlefield all the time, a war zone, a battleground. Every time you enter through the door, right? There's argumentation. Every time you enter through the door, there's a fight. That is not what the house is supposed to be. The house is supposed to be the place when you come home, you should be completely throwing away all of your worries, all your anxiety, all your suffering. And you come home and everything becomes sukoon. Don't worry about it. That when you see your wife, you forget all your problems. This is how a wife is supposed to be. That when you see her, you forget about all your problems. When you see your husband, you should forget all your depression and all your problems. This is how the situation is supposed to be. Imagine, an example of this again is Khadijah radiallahu anha. Look at her role that she played in the household. And a lot of times, my respected sisters, the West, it tries to prove to women that the more uncovered you become, the more you show off your flesh, the more you show off your chest, the more you show off your legs, the more intellectual you will be. The more advanced you will be. The more smarter you will be. Right? But this is something which is completely opposite to reality. Right? Does the nakedness of a woman show her intellectuality? Or her foolishness? Or her immodesty and her shamelessness? I mean, just use your logic. What does exposing your body have to do with intellectual? Everybody knows that the most pious woman in history, that everybody accepts, is Mary. Everybody knows, in all of history, the most pious woman who ever lived, right? Everybody accepts her. They know that it is Mary, mother of Jesus. And was she a naked woman? Was she a woman that wears a short skirt and showing off her arms and showing off her head and showing off her chest? She is an icon of piety. She is an icon of righteousness. She is a leader of virtue for all people, for millions and billions of people in the world. The Virgin Mary. And they say, the Virgin Mary. They say with her name, the Virgin, saying that virginity is an act of virtue. A person who guarded her virginity. أحسنت فرجها فنفخنا فيه من روحنا. Allah said about Maryam, this is the maqam that Allah Ta'ala gave Maryam. Was she accepted by all of the peoples and all of these cultures in the world because of her nakedness? Or because of her piety and her shamefulness? And her righteousness? You will not see a single woman who will be respected because of her nakedness. She might be admired. She might be admired. But admiration can be for evil things also. She will not be respected. You don't respect somebody in a state of nakedness. A shameless person can admire her because she is arousing that person, and she is first putting that person to feel lustful. That is not respect. That is not honor. That is not dignity. That is not piety. That is not virtue. That is not righteousness. You don't call that virtue. You don't call that righteousness. That woman who's a stripper, she will say, and they had done an interview, and I read this interview of this woman who was saying that she said that, I know that the eye that people are looking at me with is not the eye of respect. And they said, how do you feel? She said, I feel that my soul is dead. This is not a Muslim. This is not a Christian. She doesn't have any faith. She says that after some time doing this, I know that people are looking at me. They're not looking at me with the eye of respect. So I feel after many, many years of doing this, your soul just dies. Your soul, it just dies. You don't feel it anymore. You don't feel virtue or righteousness or piety or shame. That has gone from you. So what Allah Ta'ala, my respected sisters, what Islam has brought, the virtue of women, is the virtue of a woman is in her inner strength. The inner strength that a woman has, no man can ever have that inner strength. And this is why the hadith mentions, subhanAllah, what a beautiful hadith. It says, كَمُلَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ كَثِيرٌ وَلَمْ يَكُلْ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا ثَلَاثٍ. Many men perfected their piety. Many men became prophets. But from amongst the women, only 3 of them became almost to the level of prophethood. The only thing that was left was them becoming prophets. And it was 3 women. Maryam, bint Imran. Maryam, the daughter of Imran, the mother of Isa. And Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun. And Khadijah, the daughter of Khuwaylid. Right? These were the most pious women. And why were they pious? And why were they perfected? What is the common trait in all of them? Ibn Kathir rahmatullahi says, he says, وَالْقَدْرُ الْمُشْتَرَكْ بَيْنَ الثَّلَاثِ آسِيَا وَمَرْيَمُ وَخَدِيجَةَ أَنَّ كُلًّا مِّنْهُنَّ كَفَّلَتْ نَبِيًّا وَمُرْسَلًا. Every one of them looked after a prophet and a messenger. SubhanAllah. Can you imagine? Imagine what a responsibility it is to raise a hafiz of Quran. Some people can't do it. Many people have tried. They can't do it. Try raising a hafiz of Quran. To raise your son to become a hafiz. To raise your daughter to become a hafiz. To raise your son to become an alim. To raise your daughter to become an alima. To raise your son to become a wali. A wali of Allah. Do you know how difficult that is? Even men cannot do that. Men cannot do that. And who did it? Maryam alayhi salam, she did it. Asya, Maryam, she brought up Isa alayhi salam. She did not ever marry in her life. She brought up Isa. Ruh, right? That he was one of the greatest prophets. She brought him up and raised him and made him who he was by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A mother has a direct influence on who that child becomes. You can say, well, he was a prophet, he was going to become a prophet anyways. But no. This hadith teaches us that the mother has a major influence. Mother has a major influence on the child. Asya, Imra'atu Fir'aun. Asya, what did she do? She brought up Musa alayhi salam. She was the one that brought up Musa in front of Fir'aun. She adopted Musa alayhi salam. And she brought him up. And Allah Ta'ala gave her iman. She took care of him and brought him up and then believed in him. And also Khadijah radiallahu anha, where she supported her husband. So all of these women, respected sisters and respected brothers, what is the common quality that every single one of them had? Right? They were not CEOs of companies. Right? They were not principals of universities. But they had some very, very special that they brought into existence. Right? And they developed such people that became leaders of all nations. Look at the followers of Isa alayhi salam nowadays, over 1 billion people. The followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, over 1 billion people on the face of this earth. The follower of Musa alayhi salam, right? We are also followers of Musa, billions of people. And who was the cause of bringing those people up? It was these women. So from this we understand that the special quality of women is their internal strength, their sense of responsibility, their compassion and mercy, and their dedication to their household. This has become an aib, and this has become a deficiency in a society to consider a woman to be dedicated to her home. This is not an Islamic concept. This is a Western concept that wants to take women out of their homes and to become negligent of their responsibility in the home. And I tell you, they're spending millions of dollars on what? On the prison system. And they're spending millions of dollars on what? Psychologists that study the brains of these people, criminals in prison. And you know what these psychologists, they come to a conclusion? They come to a conclusion that many of these people that became rapists, they became murderers, they became killers. Many of them, they came from broken homes. Homes that they did not see the love of a mother. Or they had a mother, and that mother was a druggie, that mother was a heroin addict, that mother was a prostitute, that mother was something like this, or that mother never had time for her children. Many of those criminals that are there, psychologists, they come to this conclusion. This is the solution. The solution is having functional homes. But you know that that's a solution. But when Islam says that women should be dedicated to their home, you say that women are backwards. You say that Islam does not recognize the right of women. You say that Islam says that women should be in the home. Islam doesn't force a woman that she has to be locked up in her home. But it is saying that the house is the dedication of a woman. This is your dedication. Because there is nobody that can fulfill that responsibility better than she can. And if somebody thinks that this is something very low, or this is something very inferior, this is an ignorant mentality. Because she is the one that's creating those doctors, creating those ulama, creating those engineers, creating those pious people. How can it happen if it comes from a broken home? If those mothers aren't there to look after their needs, if those mothers are not there to encourage them. It is those mothers that are the support for those righteous people to do what they're able to do. Every successful person in this world, look at him, he will have a successful woman behind him. Every successful person in this world, you will see that they had a successful woman behind him. Imam al-Bukhari, everybody knows Imam Bukhari, Sahih al-Bukhari. It mentions that Imam Bukhari's mother was very much dedicated to him becoming a Hafiz of Hadith and a Hafiz of Quran. Many people don't know. They say Imam Bukhari, they don't know that Imam Bukhari became Imam Bukhari because of his mother. Only on the Day of Judgment will those mothers be known. When the crown of Nur and the crown of light will be placed on the heads of those mothers, then we will know the status of those women. In this dunya, we don't know. It's always, she's just a lady at home. She's looking after her children. But that lady at home, looking after her children, she is the one that's making Imam Bukhari's and Imam Shafi'i's and these great people. It is mentioned that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi became blind at a very young age. He became blind, couldn't see. So Imam Bukhari's mother, she became very saddened by this. And she cried to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, you gave me this one son, Muhammad. And I wanted him to dedicate his life to study, but now studying will become so difficult for him because he's blind. He's not going to be able to see. How will my son become a hafiz? How will he learn? So she cried and made dua, and she cried and made dua, and she fell asleep like this. That night in a dream she saw Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam told her that, "O mother of Muhammad, Ya Ummah Muhammad, have no fear and do not be sad. Allah has restored the sight of your son and he will become a great imam of his time." And when she woke up, she saw that this young child, he could see again. And his sight had become so stronger than before that he was reading the books in the light of the moon. He was even able to read the texts in the light, in the moonlight. It is mentioned about Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, that he became a orphan. His father passed away. And his mother, she could have dedicated her son and said that my son can go and become a tajir, become a merchant, become a businessman, so that he can support me. And we know that in that day and age, it was generally, women would not work. The men were the breadwinners. And she had one male offspring, the only son. And her father passed away. But the mother of Imam Shafi'i, what did she do? She said that, no, I will stay without a husband and I will raise my son to become a hafiz of Quran and to become an alim of deen. And he became the greatest. And it mentioned that Imam Shafi'i's sister also, she used to support him and look after him. Imagine a mother and a sister, females. And they are what? They are the source of, help, and they are a source of assistance for their son and for their brother to become alim of deen, a scholar of Islam. Now today, Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, what contribution he did to Islam? The Risala, which was one of the first books of usul al-fiqh that was ever written. It was written by Imam al-Shafi'i. Everyone is dependent on Imam Shafi'i when it comes to usul al-fiqh. He wrote that book. First person to write a book on usul al-fiqh was Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi. And the first person, Asahhu Kutub Ba'da Kitabillah, it was the book of Imam al-Bukhari. The best and the strongest book of hadith after the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the book of Imam Bukhari. And both of them were supported and brought up by women. This is the status of a woman. Khadijah radiallahu anha, when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was given the hukum, and he was given the wahi in Ghar Hira, what did he do? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam came and said, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me. I'm shaking, Inni akhafu ala nafsi. I fear for myself. Oh Khadijah, what's happening to me? What's going on with me? What's happening to me? Do you know what happened? I was pressed, and then I heard these words, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. I don't know, I fear for myself. Maybe something bad is going to happen to me. So look at what Khadijah radiallahu anha says. Immediately, without even thinking, she says, Kalla, ma yukhzika Allahu abadan. Never, oh my husband, Allah will never disgrace you. Allah will never disgrace you, oh my husband. إِنَّكَ لَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ وَتَسْتُقُ الْحَدِيثِ وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلْبِ وَتَقْرِ الضَّيْفِ وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ. Look at what she starts counting of her husband. And remember, Khadijah radiallahu anha married the Prophet and she knew that he's a poor man. He married him, he was young. He was 25 years old. Khadijah was over 40 years old. And she was a widow. And she had children. And she knew that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was poor. Despite that, she married him. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he married Khadijah despite the fact that she was an old woman. And she was married before. Because he knew that the one that's going to marry me, despite my poverty, is going to be a person who sees only my virtue, doesn't see my money. Allahu Akbar. And this is a lesson for all those brothers and sisters that are not married. This is the way that you choose a spouse. Don't choose a spouse running after his money, or running after her beauty, or that she has to be, like this, or she has to be like that. You don't know that the person that you're marrying, what are their internal qualities? Look at this, the intelligence of the Prophet even before prophethood. And look at the intelligence of Khadijah even before she was a Muslim. What did she say? Immediately, right on the spot, she knew the qualities of her husband. And what did she say? Kalla wallahi ma yughzika Allahu abadan. Never, oh my husband, Allah will never disgrace you. Innaka latasilu rahim. Oh my husband, you join the family ties. You never allow the family to break up. If you see family members that are getting into an argument, you go and you try to, join the ties with the family. وَتَصْدُقُ الْحَدِيثِ. You never tell lies. Right? وَتَقْرِ الضَّيْفِ. And you look after the guests. Right? And وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ. And you look after the people that are suffering. And you look after the downtrodden. And you take care of the miskin and the yatim. Allah Ta'ala will never disgrace you. Allah will never ever put you to shame. Imagine, this was the support of the women. And that is how the Prophet ﷺ became who he became. Through the support. She was the first Muslim. The first Muslim of this ummah was a woman. That tells you about the status of women in Islam. The first woman, the first person in this ummah that was Muslim was a woman. Other than the Prophet. The Prophet, he doesn't count because he was the Prophet himself. Other than the Prophet, the first person to accept Islam was what? Was a woman. The first martyr in Islam, the first shaheed. Who was the first shaheed? Not a man, it was a woman. Right? He was Sumayya radiallahu anha, the mother of Ammar. Right? The mother of Ammar radiallahu anhu, the wife of Yasir. The first shaheed of Islam was a woman. And the first Muslim was also a woman. Imagine. So, this was the status of Khadijah radiallahu anha. And this was their virtue. That she supported Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one time it has been mentioned that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was mentioning Khadijah with great virtues about her in front of Aisha. And then Aisha, she started becoming very jealous. And said, oh Rasulullah, you always talk about this Khadijah this, Khadijah that, Khadijah this, Khadijah that. Allah gave you better. Allah gave you young women. Who is that old lady you're always talking about? She said like that. And the Prophet ﷺ became very angry. When she said this, the Prophet ﷺ became very angry. That, مَا أَبْدَلِنِ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا. He said, Allah did not give me better than Khadijah. No one can replace Khadijah. And why is that? وَقَدْ آمَنَتْ بِي إِذْ كَفَرَ بِيَ النَّاسِ. She believed in me when everyone disbelieved in me. وَصَدَّقَتْنِي إِذْ كَذَّبَنِيَ النَّاسِ. And she said that I was truthful when everyone said that I was a liar. وَآسَتْنِي بِمَالِهَا إِذْ حَرَمَنِيَ النَّاسِ. And she consoled me with her wealth. And she spent her wealth upon me when all the people closed the door in my face. وَرَزَقَنِيَ اللَّهُ وَلَدَهَا إِذْ حَرَمَنِي أَوْلَادَ النِّسَاءِ. And Allah Ta'ala granted me children from her when I was not given children from any other woman. SubhanAllah. This was the respect that the Prophet ﷺ had for Khadijah, and he used to remember her so much that when he would slaughter, after she had passed away, when he would slaughter a goat and there would be extra meat, he would give that extra meat as a hadiyah to the friends of Khadijah. That is how much he loved her. This is love. That you remember somebody even after they pass away. And it mentions that one time, there was an old woman that was coming. And the Prophet ﷺ stood up and he said, Ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban, welcome, welcome. And all the women, all the other Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, who's this old lady? We don't even know who she is. How are you showing so much respect and we don't know who this is? He said, this is one of the friends of Khadijah. She always used to visit us. When Khadijah was alive, she would come and visit Khadijah. So, I wanted to show respect to her. Because, حُسْنَ الْعَهْدِ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ. Right? To show loyalty to people, to have loyalty, to have respect for people, and have that relationship with people that you had before, holding on that relationship is something which is virtuous in Islam. So brothers and sisters, this is all the virtues of this pious woman. And all of this being said, which woman is this that she's given such a high status? Khadijah radiallahu anha, she passed away before the 5 daily prayers could even be revealed. She did not even pray the 5 daily prayers. She passed away before the Mi'raj. She passed away in Makkah Mukarramah. She did not even perform the 5 daily prayers. She passed away before the fardiyat of the month of Ramadan. She did not fast a single Ramadan. She did not fast a single 5 daily prayers. At that time, I think maybe tahajjud prayer and I think the Fajr prayer and the Isha prayer or something like that. Or the tahajjud prayer only was something which was fard. There was only one prayer that was fard. It was like the tahajjud prayer. And then when the Prophet ﷺ went for Mi'raj, later on it became mansukh, and then the 5 daily prayers, it became binding. She never prayed 5 daily prayers, because it wasn't even necessary. And she did not even perform one fast of the month of Ramadan. And Allah has given her such a status that He not given to anybody else. From this we understand the virtues. And if we look at just one example of Khadijah radiallahu anha, in all of history you will not find such a pious woman. This shows the status of women in Islam. Just Khadijah radiallahu anha, all alone. Bring in all of history a woman, you will not find a woman like Khadijah. And we've not even begun to explain the story of Maryam, and the story of Asiya, and the story of Aisha, and the story of Fatima, and the story of Hafsa, and the story of all these other pious women. Inshallah, after these few days, may Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq, I want to dedicate the Saturday nights just by speaking about the pious women of Islam. Because I think we don't give enough attention, and we don't give them the credit that is due to them. That these women in Islam, they're of such a status that even the men of Islam can learn from them. That was the status that these women of Islam have. Every single woman is of such a status that the men can take ibrah and to take lesson from them. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to follow them. May Allah give the men the tawfiq to follow these women. Even if the men follow the nusra of deen that Khadijah made, she is an example for the men, and she's also an example for the women. May Allah give the men also the tawfiq to follow her, and may Allah give the women also the tawfiq to follow her. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.